Right then, let's get our boots on and head out to County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland. Tucked away in the rolling green hills near the meandering river Slaney lies a truly special place. We're talking about the ruins of Baltinglass Abbey. Now, at first glance, you might just see a collection of old, weathered stones, arches reaching for the sky and quiet gravestones scattered about. But trust me, these stones have stories to tell, secrets that whisper on the wind. This isn't just any old ruin. It was once a bustling, powerful center of life, learning and prayer that shaped this entire landscape for hundreds of years. It's a proper historical treasure chest, just waiting for us to lift the lid. What makes Baltinglass so fascinating is its incredible journey through time. It saw the arrival of Norman knights, lived through medieval power struggles, and witnessed the dramatic changes that swept across Ireland. It was founded by a king, populated by dedicated monks, and became a beacon of influence that stretched far beyond its stone walls. When we walk through the nave of the old abbey church today, we're literally treading in the footsteps of kings, abbots, and humble lay brothers. It's a place that connects us directly to the medieval world. Right, so where does our story begin? We have to rewind the clock all the way back to the 12th century. The year is 1148, and Ireland is a patchwork of feuding kingdoms. The man of the hour is a powerful ruler named Diarmait mac Murchada, the King of Leinster. Now, Diarmait is a controversial figure in Irish history, often remembered for inviting the Normans to Ireland. But before all that drama kicked off, he was a canny political operator and a major patron of the church. He understood that founding a great abbey was a fantastic way to show off your power, piety, and prestige. Diarmait wasn't just building any old monastery. He decided to bring in a new, exciting, and very strict monastic order, the Cistercians. These monks were the talk of Europe at the time. The first monks to arrive at Baltinglass came from Mellifont Abbey in County Louth, which was the very first Cistercian house in Ireland. They brought with them their strict rules, their architectural plans, and their determination to tame the wilderness. The official name for the abbey was Vallis Salutis, which is Latin for the Valley of Salvation. It's a beautiful, hopeful name, isn't it? It perfectly captures the Cistercian ideal of creating a secluded haven of prayer and work, a slice of heaven on earth. So why here? Why Baltinglass? Cistercian monks were very, very particular about where they set up shop. They didn't just throw a dart at a map. Their rules, laid down by St. Bernard of Clairvaux, stated that their monasteries should be built in places remote from the conversation of men. They were looking for seclusion, for wild places they could transform through their hard work. The area around Baltinglass, nestled in a valley by the River Slaney, was perfect. The River Slaney gave them fresh water for drinking, cooking, and sanitation. They were actually brilliant plumbers. And also for powering a mill to grind their grain. The surrounding land, though wild, was fertile. The river valley had rich alluvial soil, perfect for growing crops, while the hillsides offered good grazing for their sheep and cattle. The location was also incredibly strategic from a political and defensive point of view. The abbey was situated on an important route through the Wicklow Mountains, controlling a pass that linked the lands of Leinster to the west. This gave the abbey, and by extension its patron King Diarmait, a significant degree of control over movement and trade in the region, so it was both a spiritual sanctuary and a strategic stronghold. Imagine the abbey bell ringing out across the valley in the cold pre-dawn darkness. That was the start of the day for the monks of Baltinglass. Life here was anything but lazy. It was structured around a strict timetable of prayer and work that had been followed for centuries. The day was divided into 8 prayer services, known as the canonical hours, starting with matins in the middle of the night and ending with compline after sunset. The monastic community was divided into 2 main groups. First, you had the choir monks. These were typically educated men, often from noble or wealthy families who could read and write Latin. Their main job was the Opus Dei, the work of God, which meant performing the 8 daily church services. Then you had the lay brothers, or conversi. These men were the backbone of the abbey's economy. They were usually illiterate and came from the local peasantry. They took vows, but their work was primarily manual labor, farming the fields, tending the livestock, working in the forge or the mill. The abbey was a completely self-sufficient world. Think of it as a medieval micro-society. Within its walls and on its lands, you'd find everything needed for life. They had vast farms called granges, which were often miles away from the main abbey and run by the lay brothers. They grew oats, wheat and vegetables. They kept sheep for wool, which was a huge source of income, and cattle for milk, cheese and leather. They had bakeries, breweries for making ale, and workshops for blacksmiths, carpenters and stonemasons. It didn't take long for Baltinglass Abbey to become much more than just a local monastery. The abbey accumulated vast amounts of land, not just from its initial grant from Diarmait mac Murchada, but also from other wealthy Norman and Irish lords who wanted to gain spiritual favour by donating property. By the 13th century, Baltinglass was one of the wealthiest landowners in the whole of Leinster. This wealth translated directly into power and influence, making its abbot a very important man indeed. The abbot of Baltinglass wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was a feudal lord. He had the right to hold his own courts, collect rents and taxes from his tenants, and even had a seat in the Irish Parliament that met in Dublin. The abbots were often called upon to act as mediators in disputes between powerful families, both Norman and Gaelic Irish. The abbey, being a sacred space, was seen as neutral ground where enemies could meet and negotiate under the watchful eye of God. One of the key reasons for its growing importance was its role as a mother house. Baltinglass became so successful that it founded its own daughter houses, sending out its own monks to establish new Cistercian communities. For example, in 1153 it founded Jerpoint Abbey in County Kilkenny. This period of growth also saw the abbey become a target. The abbey was attacked and burned on several occasions, a testament to its importance. If you weren't important, nobody would bother attacking you. The 13th and early 14th centuries were truly the golden age for Baltinglass Abbey. This was when its wealth and power were at their absolute peak, and this was expressed most visibly in its magnificent architecture. What's fascinating about Baltinglass is its unique architectural style, a beautiful blend of traditional Irish Romanesque and the new sharp-edged Gothic style that was arriving from Europe. You can still see it today in the pointed Gothic arches sitting alongside rounded Irish-style windows, and a stunning series of carved capitals on the pillars, decorated with intricate Celtic-style patterns and human heads. These carved details give us a fantastic glimpse into the minds of the people who built it. They aren't just decorations, they are a statement. The fusion of style shows an abbey that was confident in its own identity, proudly Irish, yet connected to the wider European Cistercian world. The sheer scale of the church, with its long nave and impressive chancel, was designed to inspire awe in anyone who entered. Building on this scale required immense resources, expert stonemasons, and years of labour, all funded by the abbey's vast agricultural wealth. The source of this wealth was primarily wool. The Cistercians were master sheep farmers, and the hills of Wicklow were perfect for grazing massive flocks. They became key players in the international wool trade, exporting high-quality fleeces to markets in Flanders and Italy. This trade brought huge amounts of cash into the abbey's coffers, allowing them to expand their lands, embellish their church, and live in a style that perhaps strayed a little from the simple austerity their founders had intended. After the dizzying heights of its golden age, things began to get tricky for Baltinglass Abbey. From the 14th century onwards, a series of crises hit Ireland that shook the foundations of the monastic world. The first major blow was a period of climate change known as the Little Ice Age, which led to colder, wetter weather, widespread famine and cattle plagues. Then came the Black Death in 1348. This catastrophic plague wiped out a huge portion of the population, including many of the monks, lay brothers and tenants who worked the abbey's lands. The plague had a devastating long-term effect. With so many workers gone, labor became scarce and expensive. Large areas of farmland fell out of use and returned to wilderness. The abbey's income from rents and agriculture plummeted. Furthermore, the social fabric of the country was torn apart. The English colony, the Pale, shrank dramatically, and its control over areas like Wicklow weakened. This led to a resurgence of the local Gaelic Irish clans. The O'Tooles and the O'Byrnes grew more powerful and assertive, launching frequent raids on the lands of the Pale. Another major problem was a growing division within the abbey itself. A law called the Statutes of Kilkenny was passed in 1366, which tried to stop the English colonists from going native. Crucially, it also decreed that no native Irishman could be admitted to a monastery in the English-controlled areas. This created a huge rift at Baltinglass. The abbey became anglicised and its connection with the local Gaelic population was severed. This bred resentment and turned the abbey from a community hub into what many locals saw as a foreign colonial outpost. The final fatal blow for Baltinglass Abbey came in the 1530s. Over in England, King Henry VIII was having a bit of a disagreement with the Pope. He wanted a divorce. The Pope said no, and Henry's solution was to break away from the Roman Catholic Church and declare himself the head of a new Church of England. He launched what is known as the dissolution of the monasteries, a campaign to shut them all down and seize their lands and wealth for the crown. In 1536, the king's commissioners arrived at the gates of Baltinglass Abbey. Their job was to assess the abbey's wealth, inventory its possessions, and officially dissolve it. The abbot at the time, John O'Cullen, and his few remaining monks were powerless to resist. After almost 400 years of continuous prayer and work, the life of the abbey was brought to an abrupt and brutal end. The monks were pensioned off with a small sum of money and told to leave. The great bell that had marked the hours for centuries fell silent. The Valley of Salvation was no more. The sacred buildings were stripped of anything valuable. The lead was torn from the roof to be melted down for scrap or bullets. The stained glass windows were smashed and the bells were taken away. The church, once the glorious heart of the community, was left as an empty, roofless shell, open to the wind and the rain. The closure of the abbey was a disaster for the local area. It wasn't just the loss of a spiritual centre, it was the collapse of the entire local economy. The dissolution of the monasteries was a key event in the history of Ireland, accelerating the process of English colonisation and deepening the religious divides that would shape the country's future for centuries to come. So what's left of this once great abbey? Well, quite a lot actually. Today, the ruins of Baltinglass Abbey stand quietly in the middle of a graveyard, which is still in use. The main part of the Abbey Church was actually re-roofed in the 19th century and now serves as the local Church of Ireland parish church. So, in a way, the site has had an unbroken history of Christian worship for nearly 900 years, which is pretty amazing. Walking around the site today is like stepping back in time. You can trace the entire layout of the monastery. You can stand in the chancel where the choir monks sang their daily services and marvel at the surviving Gothic windows. The real treasures, though, are those incredible carved pillar capitals I mentioned earlier. They have survived the centuries, their intricate Celtic-inspired designs and strange little faces staring out at you. These stones are the most direct link we have to the masons who built this place, a tangible piece of their artistry and faith. They remind us that this wasn't just a fortress of power. It was a place of incredible creativity and beauty. The legacy of Baltinglass Abbey is written all over the surrounding landscape. The layout of the fields, the names of local places, and even the course of the river still bear the marks of the Cistercian monks' incredible engineering and farming skills. They tamed this valley and made it productive, and that legacy endures. The Abbey's story is the story of Ireland in miniature, a tale of faith, invasion, cultural fusion, conflict and survival. So, next time you're in County Wicklow, don't just drive past. Stop at Baltinglass. Walk among the ancient stones, run your hand over the carved capitals and listen. Listen to the echoes of the monks' chants, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer, and the ringing of that final silent bell. The abbey may be a ruin, but it's a living ruin packed with stories. It's a powerful reminder of a lost world and a testament to the enduring power of faith and the resilience of stone. It's a proper time-traveling experience and a fantastic piece of our shared history. Absolutely brilliant.